I was surfing the internet last year and got a bit jealous when I saw this kit being built by some fellow modelers because it looked so good. I had to have it. I found it on sale one weekend and snatched it up, as well as all the resin goodies to go along with it. They'll turn a 1-month build into a 3-month build, but it's all about the journey, right? Plus, I would have spent the money in months 2 and 3 on new model kits, so that's how I justify the extra expense. It was all a break even. When it comes to slicing off the panels and building the cockpit, gun bays, and engine, you've maybe already seen those videos, so I'll speed through those parts, but if you haven't, the links are in the description below. If you want more details on a certain aspect, there's a chance it's included in those videos. If not, leave me a comment. I try to respond to every single question I get. As I alluded to earlier, the kit has some amazing details even without the resin pieces, many of which I ended up replacing, but I do like the rivet detail on the fuselage, and even the original cockpit looked fairly nice. Why does it take me so long to assemble everything? I did buy this around last Christmas time, and I'm just now getting the video out. It's because these pieces are really fragile, mostly small, difficult to see, and the sanding and fitting that goes along with the resin parts is best to do little by little since you can't add back what you've already sanded off. And I usually build 2 or 3 models at a time, drink coffee in the mornings and whiskey in the evenings, so I'm scatterbrained and always battling shaky hands. I usually skip over the landing gear in my videos. I just don't find it very exciting, but just in case someone has been curious, here we go. I googled a picture of the Eduard photo etch fret with the brake lines and then copied them with some bent copper wire. After I spent nearly $100 on the resin, I was feeling cheap and refused to pay extra for the photo etch just to get the brake lines. I attached them with some extra thin super glue on top of the all-clad painted struts. The resin wheels have that white Goodyear logo that we've all seen before, so I attempted to make it visible with a bit of dry brushing. With all-clad paints, the gloss black base coat is equally as important as the top coat. I'll do several coats that are around 60% thinner to build up the glossy finish. My final coat is closer to 90% Mr. Color leveling thinner, and that helps it give it the wet glossy finish. I've used polish on previous builds, but I didn't on this one because the final wet coat got the plane a smooth glossy black. Plus, it's also a pain removing the polish from all the panel lines and rivets. If you don't get it cleaned out before you top coat it, then it will flake away later in the build and take the aluminum finish along with it, leaving black spots. The all-clad is also built up of many thin coats. I like to start with the shiniest color like aircraft or polished aluminum, and then dull it down with either duraluminum or just plain aluminum. The flaps and ailerons are usually a different shade than the wings, so you can see me masking them off. marked some measurements on tape strips to help paint the stabilizer and wingtips that bright yellow color. You can gauge the distance off the panel lines and compare it with the images on the decal instructions. I edited out 5 or so attempts of trying to place the tape straight before I had success with this last one. It was actually a fairly slow process to get it lined up perfectly straight. And this is my final coat of all clad that I'm spraying on only the fuselage in order to differentiate it and make it slightly different shade of aluminum from what we have on the wings. There's more than a few good marking options with this kit, so it's a hard choice and an excellent setup if you want to build more than one. But I settled on the Margaret 4. I think it was the snake emblem and the yellow tips that drew me in. Usually I clear coat the plane before using decals, but the all-clad aluminum finish is so smooth I didn't feel the need to. With the decals like the 101 numbering with a lot of clear space between the black numbers, it's critical that the finish be perfectly smooth or else you're going to see the decal film in the end. Even with microsol, the decals don't always sink into the panel lines, so I put a new blade on my knife and slice it up to guarantee that the panels aren't lost. To be honest, I couldn't get the engine and the frame to fit properly onto the plane as a combined piece, so I ended up splitting them apart after I filmed this. It wasn't pretty, and it had me pretty nervous, so there's no film of this step, but you'll see from the final result that it turned out excellent. Now, prior to this oil wash, I have laid down a clear coat of aqua gloss to protect the decals. This is most definitely not a situation where you want to rub one off. Much like re-slicing the panel lines, there were a few rivets that needed to be re-punched after being covered up by a decal. I've got 3 Rosie the Riveter wheels, and I just pick whichever one lines up with the existing rivets. There's no need to break out the calipers to try to measure 0.6 millimeters. I should have done this after applying the decals, but I got over-eager. The technique is exactly the same though, and I repeated it once after I added them. It looked a little overdone at one point, so you saw me spraying a very, very thin coat of NATO black to help make the worn effect a bit more subtle. I'm using a black and brown acrylic paint to make a dark burnt iron for the exhaust pipes. I deliberately omitted the exact brown color because it doesn't really matter. Just mix it with a little more or a little less black to get that dark brown. It was going to be a nightmare to mask and paint with an airbrush, so I opted for a hand brush. After I built and painted a full set of rockets, I decided it looked too plain compared to all the other aftermarket stuff I had added on. So late in the build, I bought the resin replacements, which you can see in comparison had thinner fins and some extra detail on the rocket exhaust. They came with photo etch clamps, which were fun, that is sarcasm, but definitely ended up looking good at the end. Oddly, there were no mounts on the resin, so I had to cut them off the plastic rockets that came with the kit, glue them onto the wings, so that there was something to mount my clamps onto. By the way, it's a lot easier to add the powder stains from the shell ejection slots before you attach the rockets and the drop tank mounts. Don't get over eager, just wait to attach all that stuff to the very end. the Winsor Newton matte varnish to cover the entire model, but I did do more coats over the painted and the decaled areas. Even though I do want that natural metal finish, I don't need to be able to see my image in the reflection. It just doesn't need to be that shiny. And that's it. I'm finished. Threw in the towel, snapped some pics, and 10 minutes later I uploaded this video. Just kidding, it took quite a bit longer to produce this. That's part of the reason I can only upload one video per month. I would love to do more, but I'm a one-man show here. I gotta build it, and it takes a while to edit it. So thanks for sticking it out to the end. Leave me a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you didn't, why are you still here? The past 4 months have been dominated by the Mustang, and so next month, look for something new. Not sure which video I'll make yet, but it's not gonna be a Mustang. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time.